T.I.'s family dynamic has become one of the most talked about stories in recent years. With ongoing tensions between him and his son, King Harris, the public has witnessed a complex and sometimes dramatic father-son relationship unfold. But a shocking revelation from T.I. about his son has left many people wondering, does he really believe his son deserves to die? Today, we're diving deep into this controversy, exploring the father-son relationship that's been strained by choices, consequences, and the weight of a shared past. In September 2022, King Harris, the 18-year-old son of T.I. and Tamika "Teenie" Harris, was arrested in Atlanta. The charges: not wearing a seatbelt while driving. At first glance, it seems like a minor offense, one that many might brush off. But what followed was something much bigger. King was caught on video laughing about the situation, saying, "The king is back, bro. I'm free." To most, this might seem like a playful response, but for his father, it was the last straw. Ty quickly responded on Instagram Live, and his words were not those of a man defending his son. Instead, he said, "I know my son. You think I ain't spoken to him? Think I ain't told him, his mama and his grandmothers, his ass going to prison if he keeps that up." Those words were hard to hear, especially coming from a father who clearly loved his son, but T.I. wasn't backing down. For him, it wasn't just about the arrest, it was about a deeper concern. His son was heading down a dangerous path. What followed next was even more intense. T confessed on social media, "I know that energy. I was that energy. I know exactly how it's going to turn out." T.I. was referencing his own past, one filled with criminal activities. He knew what it was like to be on the streets, and he could see his son heading in the same direction. TD had walked that road before, facing prison time himself for drug and gun charges, and he didn't want King to repeat his mistakes. T didn't sugarcoat his message. He said, "King's a good kid chasing after the wrong things. I trust in God to deal with it the way he sees fit." T acknowledged that he had tried everything: discipline, guidance, and love, but now his son was going to have to face the consequences of his own actions. King's done got all the whoopings, he's gotten the punishments. Now, he's gonna have to go through it and get through it, T admitted. This was a father who had done everything he could, but in the end, he was powerless to change his son's course. For some people, T.I.'s message was a powerful moment of tough love. Others, however, thought it was a father giving up on his son. But the truth is, T.I. wasn't speaking out of anger. He was speaking from experience. He knew the dangerous path King was on because he had been there himself. T.I. had faced the same temptations and challenges when he was young. He knew that the streets don't care who your father is. They take what they take, and if you play the game long enough, you pay the price. The next chapter in their story came in late November 2023. During an Atlanta Falcons game, T.I. and King got into a heated argument that quickly turned physical. The confrontation, which unfolded in front of thousands of people, was shocking. The family was there to celebrate hip-hop's 50th anniversary, but instead, they were in the middle of a public argument that went viral. In a clip from the event, T.I. can be heard questioning King's life experiences, asking him, "King, have you ever woke up with a roach on your face?" T.I. was trying to make a point. His son hadn't experienced the hardships that he had, but King wasn't backing down. In an almost defiant move, he offered to show T.I. a drug den in his neighborhood to prove his connection to the streets. "Do y'all want to go to the bando in my neighborhood?" King asked, challenging his father's assumptions. "Silver spoon. I ain't never eaten with that a day in my life." At this point, the situation was already out of control. King's mother, Tiny, tried to step in, but it only made things worse. Tiny, during the heated exchange, even dropped a bombshell in the live stream. She said, "I'm going to tell you the reason why he wanted to be over there, because he could suck a pacifier till he was 12 years old." This comment made publicly humiliated King, and he lashed out saying, "What's wrong with y'all? Why y'all doing that to me?" In a moment of sheer frustration, the situation escalated further. T.I. grabbed his son, placing him in a headlock while verbally attacking him, saying, "You're embarrassing yourself and your family." King, in turn, took to Instagram after the altercation, continuing to lash out at his father. In one post, King wrote, "If I'm a mistake, say that. Stop making the world think you expletive with me when you don't." It was a painful moment, one that displayed the deep fracture in their relationship. This incident was only the latest in a series of troubling events in King's life. From viral arguments to criminal charges, King seemed to be on a downward spiral. In 2022, he became involved in a fight at a Waffle House over a dispute about pickles. It was a petty argument, but it escalated quickly, and King was filmed threatening an employee. The video went viral, and the internet exploded with criticism. T.I. didn't hold back either. He responded publicly, saying that he was perplexed by his son's behavior. "We were perplexed by his necessity to go back and forth with a short-order cook," T.I. said. He couldn't understand why his son, who had everything, was acting out this way. It seemed like King was trying to prove something, trying to live a lifestyle he hadn't experienced. But no matter how many times T.I. tried to guide him, King kept making choices that seemed to bring him closer to trouble. In the months following the Waffle House incident, King continued to make headlines for all the wrong reasons. His mother, Tiny, defended him, saying that King had always been rebellious but was still her sweetheart. She explained that every family has that one child who gets into trouble, but that didn't make him a bad person. Tiny tried to play the role of protector, even as the world watched her son spiral out of control. But in 2024, things began to change. In a radio interview, King opened up about his relationship with his father, admitting that their tension was due to how much they were alike. Slowly but surely, T.I. and King started to rebuild their relationship. T spoke about his son with more affection, acknowledging that King was a good kid who had just made some bad decisions. Then, in December 2024, the two performed together at a major event, the iHeartRadio Jingle Ball. This performance marked a dramatic shift from the public arguments and struggles they had faced just a year earlier. Instead of fighting, they were now sharing a stage, showing the world that they were starting to heal. King's journey into fatherhood played a role in this transformation. By the end of 2024, he had become a father himself, and many believed that fatherhood would be the lesson he needed to slow down and mature. T, who had spent years trying to steer his son in the right direction, was finally seeing signs of change. So, does T believe his son deserves to die? Absolutely not. What T.I. said, in the rawest and most painful public admission, was that he recognized the path his son was on because he had walked it himself. He wasn't wishing for that outcome. He was simply acknowledging the harsh reality of the streets. He had made peace with the possibility. But that's not the same as wanting it to happen. Ty understands the dangers of the streets better than most. He's been there, and he knows that the streets don't care about your last name or your family's wealth. They take what they take. But Ty also knows that life doesn't always end in tragedy. Over the last year, father and son have started to understand each other better. T.I. has been trying to guide King, showing him the lessons he learned the hard way. It's been messy, painful, and full of setbacks. But the hope is that King will ultimately find his way. The future for King Harris is still uncertain, but with the support of his father, who's walked the same troubled path, there's hope for redemption. TD's tough love may just be the thing King needs to change course. As this family continues to evolve, so does their story, one of love, frustration, and ultimately understanding.